Welcome to another episode of the Angels Positivity and Love Show. Incredible guests the world over with amazing insights, experiences, and really high vibe here to share with all of us. Today, coming to us from California, Camille James Harman. She wears a lot of hats. Actress, UFO experiencer, or however she'd like to describe it. Just if love's the fabric of the universe, she's experienced a lot of love and a lot of wisdom, a lot of expansion over time. She loves sharing that with others. That's part of her personal mission. She's super gracious, and I'm just thankful to have her here. Great to see you again.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, love is the answer.
Well, why don't we start with that? There's always other narratives going on why we should be afraid, we should react, we should do control, censorship, or better not. Could you talk to us about the difference between maybe up here or in here, or looking out into the universe or within? How are we not alone?
Well, I believe that we're not alone on all dimensions as well as all of physical reality. And, if people could see beyond the veil, if they put on those Dicenian glasses or whatever, they would be like, whoa, what's going on? So I think that once you have these experiences behind the veil or in with other beings, it just opens you up so much to a bigger reality. And some of it is scary. So if you can always choose love, even when you're in a scary situation, and in this life and normal life too, it doesn't mean you throw out all rationality. It just means that you choose to react rationally, but from a place of love. When you can make yourself do that, it should be a practice.
Talk to us about your own getting comfortable with there being more around us and within us. At the beginning, weren't you a little nervous or questioning what
Oh
was
yeah.
going on?
Yeah, because when in the beginning of my experiences that were conscious to me back in 1995 when I was 29 years old, um, it started off with a bang because I had a sighting and I had an abduction event that was associated with sleep paralysis, and it was very frightening. And then when I did a regression to it, I discovered that it was what I had suspected actually, that I had had a baby removed by these beings. And it was very traumatizing. That was my first one. I was like, holy cow, like, oh my God, what is happening? And there were so many reactions just instinctually of fear, but it wasn't like evil fear. It was just like weird fear. So I always try to not assign that experience to something evil that happened. I try to be like, well, it's more like I was a dog at the vet and I don't have the full story. So even though it was traumatizing, I just stayed open-minded with research and meeting others and hearing others and just learning that there's a whole bunch going on, a lot good, bad, and not so good. So I have had experiences that since then were very powerful, ecstatic union with light beings. And that was worth all the scary stuff. Um, and then I've had so many amazing synchronicities that come out of a place of love. My synchronicities usually come from a place of love, and magical things will happen like immediately, and it's so exciting to keep operating that way even as events unfold and we're all like, oh man, this is happening, what's it going to be like, oh my gosh. um so I just try to stay positive but not naive. Like, I am open-minded about explanations for some things being dark, like there could be mind control going on with people, and there could be, other bad things, let's just say. um, those things are not non-existent. It's just that even if you're someone who experienced something that traumatizing, you still need to operate from a place of peace and love and be doing what Jesus told us, even though, we may be scared.
I love the wisdom you just shared. Could you share a little more from the direction? Let's say it's a group of light beings. What do you think their message is to us today? Or if you'd like to do active listening or feeling into this, what is their message for us today?
I think their message is be calm among the chaos that's coming and stay loving. And I mean, that's how I feel. I feel like they're telling us it's going to get really wild and it's all going to be okay. And just, ride the wave here that's coming. So that's how I feel.
Can you take us through the following statement in whatever way you'd like, whether you were a self-help coach, a life coach, because you give good advice to people. If the expression is feel what you feel, do not judge, talk to us about how that's really important.
Feelings are very primal and they come from a lot of places, from our accumulated past
Hmm.
and our accumulated version of reality that we have right now. But our versions of reality are always adjusting to new information. And so when you have a strong feeling, sometimes you just get other feelings that are contradictory that say, you know what? Maybe you should just not overreact right now. Maybe you should come back to this decision and look at it with different eyes a little bit later. And I did that recently. I had a very interesting story happen to me this year. I found out last year that my birth father was not my birth father. And it was kind of shocking. It was an ancestry truth bomb. And so I went digging because it didn't say who my father was, but I had relatives that were populating as my DNA matches and all this. So through a long process, I found my birth father and I found out he was alive. And I was like, oh my gosh, now I'm so curious. I really want to meet this guy. He's old. Like, I got to find him. So I did all this work. I found him. And then I found all these newspaper articles about him where he had committed crimes and gone to prison and all this stuff. And I was like, I don't know if I want to meet him now. He sounds kind of scary. Like, even if he's old, maybe, I don't know. And all my relatives were like, why do you want to meet him when, you read that? And so for a long time, I didn't. I just dropped it. I just kind of filed it away. And then I had this feeling like, you know what? I really want to meet him. And I did some more talking to people that knew him.
Mm.
And finally, I found this woman that knew him. And she was like, oh, he's a sweetheart. All that's in the past. And, I know him very well. And I will totally approach him for you. And we made it happen. We made it happen. And I was just like so brave. And so we did a DNA test and proved it. And then I flew to visit him in Louisiana at the dementia ward at the residential home because that's where he lives now. And he was excited about meeting me. He had authorized the test. I had sent him pictures of me and when I got there, with her, I was very nervous. He would like remember all this and we had these very great days of visiting him and he remembered me and he got it. And I was able to be very loving with this man and very forgiving and I was kissing him and, talking to him and laying in bed with him and just telling stories, listening to him tell stories, all these things we had in common. It was wild. And it was so beautiful. And I got snowed in and I couldn't leave. I had to change my flights twice. I had to stay 3 extra days. So I had more time with this woman that knew him so well all his life. And I had more time to visit him. And it was just, I'm so glad I did that. And if I'd have stayed in that place of resentment and fear, I would have never had that opportunity to brighten his life. He has no children. He didn't know about me. I said, not only do you have me, you have grandchild too. You have a grandson. And he was a horseman. I was a horsewoman. He was in rodeos and all this stuff. And he was a car nut. And he and my son both had the same kind of cars. Like they both have had a Crown Vic police interceptor, very specific. And they've both had Mustangs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so wild. So it was just a real blessing. Like those kinds of things, if you come from a place of love, those kind of things can happen.
Let's keep you going in this direction. I'll give you another one of those phrases, and then if you could relate it back to us with good advice moving forward for all of us on our own individual unique life paths. The expression is grow your awareness, not your thinking.
Grow your awareness, not your thinking.
Grow your awareness, not your thinking.
Well, your awareness requires the open-mindedness, first of all, because that's what brings you to the other levels of taking it in and processing it. So if your awareness is open, then you're catching more data, you know. Yeah, and you can use that for thinking later.
Good one. Good one. Okay. And let's go back to the concept of maybe humans with our thinking, and if the big currency on the planet right now is knowing, the type of knowing that precludes possibility, we do it in science. But if we want to use science as an example, and we know how relationships are in our sports teams, they're good or they're bad or they're in transition. We know this, we know that. We're very fixed on knowing points, concrete thinking. But science is a great example in and of itself. Any piece of knowing, any new invention, any fact, wait a week, wait a month, wait 2 decades, it gets replaced with a new factoid, and that's it. It's constantly changing whether we want to acknowledge it or not. And with that, talk to us about this currency we use. We use knowing to block a lot of learning and expansion and more love. How do you read into all this?
Well, knowing can be used as a control mechanism. I mean, look at all the censorship during COVID. We knew a lot of things that were true that they were telling us wasn't true, and people were getting censored. And now it's all coming out, and it's great. So, they thought they knew everything, but they didn't know everything. Well, the ones who designed all this knew a lot that they didn't tell us, but the ones that were, you know, calling us deniers and such, they thought they knew everything. And I was the weirdo in my family on the Zoom meetings during the lockdowns, right? So I was the one saying, well, I saw a TED tape with a TED talk with Bill Gates saying he wanted to reduce the world's population by 15% with vaccines. So I'm not taking it. And I had a nuclear scientist uncle and all these smart relatives on the Zoom with me. And they're like, well, that's ridiculous. I'm like, okay, see you in a few years. So knowing comes from many sources. And you're right. We can change our science constantly. We can change our knowing. I just read a book about plasma science, and I'm not a science person. I'm an art person, but I was in a reading group and we all read this book about plasma science. It was called A New Science of Heaven. And it was about plasma clouds out in space and plasma beings and plasma seen during conception, photography of conception, the light flash and plasma when people die and it comes out like a wisp. And it just had all of these old and new things put together from the molecular to the, astronomy. And they were talking about plasma holding consciousness. And it was so exciting because we were all like, yeah, orbs and yeah, all the stuff that we're aware of and we're dealing with the light beings and this and that. And it's all connected through this plasma consciousness that's pervasive in the whole universe and in us. So it was just very exciting to see like the old and the new coming together. And that's what I love when they have new science that validates old mystical versions of reality.
Now, jumping back to your personal history, you've shared, I mean, you've been on a lot of shows. You've shared a lot, you've recounted your experiences quite often. Could you share one of those accounts with us so the audience gets a good sense for what you've been through?
Well, okay, I told you about my first one with the beings on being taken out of my bedroom in a blue beam of light. And next thing I knew, I was going through the ceiling and then I was on a table. So I never saw a ship above my house, but I had the feeling of going out of my house through the ceiling. Then I was on this table with a white mist all around me or a white light. And I was terrified. And there were beings lined up that all looked alike. They had big white heads with big black wraparound eyes. They had white robes with a high collar
Hmm.
and long sleeves. And they were telling me to relax. And then there was a being that I couldn't make out that did this gynecological procedure on me with an instrument. I saw a flash of the instrument. It was really scary. And then took this thing out of me and walked out of the room with it really quickly. And I was so bereft and I was crying and like, they didn't even let me see it. Like, this is so horrible and so crazy. And I could see it barely through the instrument, like through the slats in the instrument. All I saw was like this little pink thing, like smaller than a walnut. And I couldn't see features. So I don't know if it was a human mini, fetus. I had no period for like 4 months at the time this happened. So whatever 4 month gestation would be, that's what it was size wise. And I was so angry and People tried to talk me out of it. They were like, well, it must be a screen memory for something subconscious. Like you had an abortion and you feel guilty. I'm like, I've never had an abortion. That doesn't make sense. Next, like, what's your next theory? Um, so I don't know how to explain that to people. The only piece I get is knowing that having been in many abduction support groups, it's happened to every woman in the group pretty much. And every man has had semen taken. So it's a real thing. People need to wrap their heads around that. And that's a big thing. Um, but, I also had an experience with light beings where they told me I had to go to Earth to fight evil. And I was like, okay. And then they said, tell people we exist and we love them. And they said, do it through your acting. And I said, really? Because there's not much acting that's about, I don't know. I was jaded. And they said, don't worry, we will set it up so that you meet people and make projects worthy of your time. And the very next film I did was about an angelic encounter, which was wild. And then I have been in films where I think I'm helping to expose evil. And now I'm doing a lot of documentaries. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be in Accidental Truth next, which is a documentary coming out June 2nd. And I'm going to see it premiered at Contact in the Desert on June 1st. And it's about the consciousness aspect of UFO encounters. So I'm excited to be in that, where we have the next level conversation about this. Mm.
Can we take a moment, light a little sage? I'll blow you some smoke to California from Texas. Are you good with that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to light a little sage for folks at home. If you haven't done this before, just relax, breathe extra, smile. I'll tell a dad joke. And if you don't mind asking angels to get you out of your head into your heart, that can help. It's the Zen thing. Your heart already knows how to connect to everything. You're Pele with the soccer ball. But you still might have to set your intent. So just ask angels to get you out of your head into your heart. And some people start tasting it or smelling it right now while there's just flame. I just put up Australian show host. I think he has 700,000 on his show. Inspired Evolution, Amrit Sandhu. He's the only one that on tape, when I'm blowing it, he sneezed. He got the sage so much in his nose, he sneezed. We laughed for 30 seconds. And I think I'm on tape saying, I never do shorts out of these shows, but if I was going to do it, it would be that clip. Well, I did it yesterday for the first time ever and put it up today. So you can check that out on all my social media stuff. But here we go. Camille, are you already getting a little bit of smoke or sage? What are you getting at your end?
It's hard to tell over my hand lotion, to be honest, but I'm visualizing it more than smelling it. Yes.
Okay. So did we kind of check the box a little bit?
I have a good imagination. I'm an actress.
Okay. All right. Well, at home, you can play this over again, and you can even put a hand out and feel the vibe on the sage. Give it whatever try you want to give it. Okay, talk to us about angels, Pleiadians, Arcturians, Lyrans, people from Andromeda, Sirius, or Orion. Which one would you like to talk about?
I don't really I don't really know for sure who I'm dealing with. I've had people tell me who I'm dealing with, but I don't have any memory or personal experiences with that. So I know that when I go out and I look at the night sky, I'm very drawn to Orion, but it's real easy to see too. When I read about all this stuff, I'm drawn to the Pleiadians, and I I did have a dream as a child of meeting with beings that had bird. They were like a bird human uh, a bird human hybrid. And I understand those are avians and they are real things. So I don't know. I mean, that's a clue. And then I have a terrible fear of reptilian anything, like the
Yeah.
creature from the Black Lagoon, the Sleestaks, all that terrible childhood on fear of those. So I don't
Land of
really.
the Lost. I hear you.
Yes, the Land of the Lost. Yes,
Yeah.
terrifying.
No accidents there with that one. Why don't we do this? We'll try one last creative thing. I'm not going to do anything at this end, but we'll have you sit still, put your hands out, only love and above. Angels, Pleiadians, the group that I just named, all love and above. If you could just close your eyes, sit still, maybe you get a flower smell, maybe you get a hug, a goosebump on the left arm, maybe you hear a few words. If you don't mind just taking a moment, we'll let it sit for 20 seconds, but I'll do a public service announcement to buy you time. Folks at home, if you want to subscribe, like, share, comment, an emoji counts if you happen to have caught that sage but don't want to admit it. You could just put down what your favorite part of the show, the series is. We've broken 3,000 subscribers. We're about to hit 1.3 million channel visits, mostly shorts. But we have amazing guests like Camille coming on. We have John Gray, Men Are From Mars, 50 million books sold, coming back on for a third time. So you can check that out this fall, and just many other fun folks. And then we'll pull Camille back in just a second. Hopefully, she had a little interaction she's willing to share out loud. If not, you can just say, "Yep, I had something, but I don't want to share." Camille, what do you get? And I'll tell a dad joke too. What's the only flower found on the human face? Tulips. Iris counts as well, but so don't settle for just one answer. Okay, what just happened? Did you get a little extra? Did you get some whooshing going on
Oh, I
energy?
was listening to you. My brain, I swear, I can't multitask like that like I used to.
Okay. All right. Well, tell us a little bit more about mankind, humanity. With all the turbulence going on, all the complexity, whether it's war, conflict, control, censorship, this, that, all the revelations going on about this group, that group. I mean, it kind of seems like it's like trying to hand out a ticket at the Indy 500. You're going to be busy, but you're never going to get the ticket on the windshield. There's a lot of corruption going on all over the globe. Welcome to mankind. What do we have to look forward to? How is this all opportunity for growth and expansion? Can you, and it's only $1 trillion question here. Can you take a shot at it?
Um, well, the opportunity is that no matter what you're attached to, whether it's entertainers, the church, whatever, politicians, you're going to be surprised. There are going to be surprises coming out on all levels. And so everybody's going to be like, what? What? Everybody's going to be reassessing reality. And then we've got UFO disclosure, which is my personal favorite, you know. But I've had many years of practice dealing with this because I've been a conspiracy theorist since for 30 years. So I feel like I'm kind of ready for anything because I've read everything and I'm like, I'm ready mentally, nothing will shock me, but I'm sure there will be things that will shock me and people like me too. So I think again, the thing is stay loving, even when you pick a side as things unfold. Um, and because there are ways to stay loving even when you pick a side. It's hard though, but there are going to be sides. You're going to have to make decisions about what you support and what you don't support, and and just pray. Lots of praying and saying, "Thank you, God, for putting me on the earth at this time and place, so I can be useful to you in this time, space, and dimension." That's what I pray for. Put me to work. Let me be useful. And let me be, since I'm an extrovert and a public figure somewhat, let me be um, clear to people in my communication so that I don't bring more confusion to the picture. That's that's what I do. So even when I'm confused, I say I'm confused, and I say it could be this, it could be this. So um, I think if we all can just be honest about what we understand and what we don't understand and what we're grappling with, we can all move forward together through this.
There's the expression never let a good crisis go to waste or never let an opportunity for disclosure go to waste. What happens if a group of people try to paint disclosure in a certain way that means you got to trust them, put them more in power? It's a battle between good and evil. Everything that isn't human is demonic or just bad or it's an alien invasion, when in fact it might be the pancake flipped. Could you talk to us about what happens if the narrative comes out and it's really tight? It's censorship, really control. If you allow for anything beyond what they're saying, you're in deep trouble. Talk to us about a worst case scenario for disclosure.
That is a worst case scenario. And there has been some talk amongst my abductee community, contactee experience, or whatever we call ourselves, of fear of being put in camps. Not, I wasn't saying that, but I've heard that going around. Because if we become the liaison as experiencers, if we become the public face of the liaison between these non-humans and humanity, and those non-humans are assigned as negative, then it puts us in a compromised position potentially, like you're saying. So there is that. And And that could happen, but I don't think that's the way it's going to go. I think
Would it
that's
be a little ironic
right.
though, with the
Yeah.
people peddling that and their backgrounds and who they're connected to and relying on? And is there a way you can lightly and politely touch upon a lot of complexity and negativity there? Like, in other
Well, yeah,
words, reptilian, demonic, actually on the side saying that the outsiders are that.
there, there could be that. Because there are humans aligned with the reptilians that want to stay hidden. Okay. Um, there is human trafficking, I do believe, connected to the reptilians.
Yep.
There is a ritual abuse, all that scary stuff, I think is real. So a lot of love and light people, some of them don't even believe that's happening. And I'm like, no, I think that's happening. So I think we need to be open to both sides of extremes. We need to in the people that want to be loving and peaceful, we need to objectively say, there are realities that are very dark. We can't just pretend they're not happening. Okay. And then the people that are all into everything's demonic, because I was like that for a while. When I went back to Catholicism in 2013 from a born again experience, I I thought it was all it was all demonic for a while. And then I didn't. It took me several years, but then I was like, you know what? I don't think it's all demonic. I think it's way more complicated than that. And if it is angelic, and we're talking fallen angels, not fallen angels, then it can be angelic and demonic, just like good and bad ETs. Like, who is the classification expert for such phenomena? So, we have been kept from this information that may have been gleaned through government sources with weird experiments, with all kinds of crazy stuff they've been doing for decades. So humanity as a general public is going to have to play catch up to all the stuff coming out about the CIA and all their stuff with the mind control and the psionics and all kinds of crazy stuff. So, but there are the people who are contactees with beings that they love and that they work with, and there are like people that are like super Christian that are having that experience, like Chris Bledsoe, who's a friend of mine. So he's found a way to balance his previous views with his current views, and still be a Christian. He still calls himself a Christian. So I think that all religions have had this good and bad narrative at their core. So that's so innate with us, no matter what religion we're from. Okay. Um, so the dark and the light, and, but we're going to have to also say, what do we want? Do we want to just live in fear and think everything's like Independence Day? Or do we want to be more like Cocoon? I mean, pick your movie. Cocoon was pretty awesome. So you can experience both, like me. I've experienced both. And I've still come out, excited about the future, not terrified. I'm excited. So I'm leaning on the, exciting narrative, and it's going to be a little sci-fi maybe, but I think it's going to work out.
Perfect. Do you have a way you like to describe your intuitive skill set? You've clearly got it down for acting, and there's a certain way you roll. How do you like to describe just your intuitiveness overall?
My intuitiveness it's not with bells and whistles. It's with synchronicities and signs. So it's like real tangible things that I piece together. I'm good at pattern recognition, and I'm good at following flow. And I'll tell a story about another amazing story. So I was driving this woman named Sev Tak, who's an experiencer, to the airport. And she and I met at UFO Con, and I had heard her lecture, but she had not heard mine. So she said, "Tell me your story," because I didn't go to your lecture. And so I said, "Okay, and I tell her my story, including my military abduction memory, which was scary. And she said, I've had military abductions too. And they have done tests with me that were very frightening. And the only thing I could do to get through it was put myself in a place of love. Like only love would get me through that." And I was like, you know what? That's really true. And So anyway, we had that conversation, and then I told her I was reading about Diana Pasulka and her work with Catholicism and the mystics that had these encounters that seem a little bit like um, maybe ET encounters, um, like Saint Teresa of Avila. So I was telling her about that, and then I dropped her off. We hugged. I went on my way home, but my phone routed me all the way back around to like my house, but like way around the backside of LA. And we talked about how I lived in Silver Lake when this all happened to me back in the day, 30 years ago. So it routed me right by Silver Lake, by my old house. And I thought, I'm going to pull off and go see my old house and I'm going to have lunch at Whole Foods and it's lunchtime. Why not? So I pulled off and I come down the ramp into my old neighborhood and there's this cute little church, really old, and I'm just admiring it. And I said, I wonder what it is. You know, I looked closer at the name. It was really small on the wall, and it said Saint Teresa of Avila Church. And I was like, no way. That was the church in my neighborhood when I was living in Silver Lake, and I never even knew because I never drove down here and I wasn't going to church back then. So then I go by my old house, and somewhat okay, it's on a hill and it has a retaining wall to hold the front yard in, right? So it's like a big wall. And somebody had written only love in pink chalk on the wall. Big, big, like only love. And I said, what is happening? And I stopped the car and I rolled down my window and I was just looking at it and taking pictures of the wall. And then I heard voices coming from the porch. And I was the lady that lived up there. It's a duplex. And so I got out and I said, excuse me, hello. I used to live in this house and I would love to tell you a story of what happened to me here. Are you open to that? And she yells from above, sure, yeah, come on up. So her friend was leaving. Her friend leaves. I go up and we sit on her porch and I tell her my story. And she told me she had UFO encounters in that house. Not encounters like of aliens, but she saw UFOs from that house. And we had the best time talking. And she told me all these weird stories. So, like, what are the odds of all that? That is so wild. And if I hadn't been talking about those things, Silver Lake and St. Teresa of Avila and Only Love, and then they all three happened. It
Can
was
we
wild.
can we try one more thing? I'll put up a photo of Audrey Hepburn, an angel, unconditional love, another actress like yourself. You can let this photo move, wink, smile, shoulder waggle. We've had a lot of guests on the show over 3 years have something happen. The brain will say, I didn't see that. The heart says, oh my God, that's pretty. And we know photographs can't move, but there's always more in the universe, and love is really big. You might catch an uninvented perfume from Paris or Milan if you wish, and you can even hear something from her or get a touch on the shoulder, whatever you're comfortable with. Here's Audrey Hepburn. Allow, 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 no triota. I'm going to do Yoda's voice to distract you at the brain level. So, and now that I'm hiding behind the photo in my iPhone, I can do Yoda's voice confidently. Here we go. Mm, do, do not. There is no try. And see if you get a feeling, a reaction. If anybody needs help at home, just ask angels to get you out of your head into your heart. Own it with a thank you. Amen, rock and roll, whichever way you roll. And if you need extra help, either put a hand on your heart or breathe through the mouth. 1 millimeter with your mouth open a little bit helps let go an extra 1%, 5%. It's really up to each person to do their own letting go. All right, Camille, did you get anything, feel anything, smell anything? You can catch flowers in the air right now, or a touch, or just a light breeze, anything you wish. Did you get anything with Audrey Hepburn?
Hmm. I
Little
mean,
some.
she seems like she's not from here.
Ooh, good observation. We had a guest go into that, but I don't remember which one. They all blend together, unfortunately. Did you get a little energy interaction at all? A goosebump, a feeling?
She's just very inspiring.
Good. Okay. What else? What do we need to know going forward? Each of us on our unique life path daily. Do you have a few routines you like to do first thing in the morning before you go to bed to let go of, worldly stress? What's some suggestions from you to the audience?
My big thing, I have trouble with structure, but I love structure. It's like a love-hate relationship. I love things like drum lines and uh, bagpipes and dressage and Irish dancing. So I love watching structure, but I don't love incorporating structure, I guess I should say. I have a strong Saturn in my chart, but anyway, um, I do like to go on a walk around the neighborhood for an hour every day. And I live in a really beautiful neighborhood with lots and lots of different plants. So it's like an aromatherapy walk the entire time. So that really grounds me and keeps me looking at the sky, looking at the trees, looking at the mountains, and just being grateful. Like, thank you, God, that I live in this neighborhood where I can walk around and see all this beauty and be inspired. And I don't know how long I'll live here, but it's great. And so that's kind of my daily inspiration, and connecting through nature. And because I'm on screens a lot, and I'm trying to be on screens less. I'm trying to finish my book this year, which is also on a screen, but trying to limit social media and stuff like that so I can focus. So I would say this is the time to spend some inner work doing whatever it is that grounds you. You could do a walking meditation like that. You could do a sitting meditation. This is the time to be grateful, feel alive, and thankful. And try to be useful. Try to be useful on the side of good and helpfulness, and help others, even if it's just make someone's day with a phone call. I have people that I talk to that are just lonely, and they're friends, and they live alone, and they're just people that I like to talk to because they need that.
I have a very specific question. For one of the times that you got to see a ship or lights in the distance, can we have you settle on one particular description? And I'll give an example at this end. I was standing in the backyard of my first Texas home in Austin, and I'm with another person, and we both saw two red lights before drones really existed, kind of moving parallel but not perfectly parallel. And then they went off, and I just turned, and we were both like UFOs. But it was years later before I talked to that person, and they were really good at listening. It was Andromedans. I had no attachment, whether it was good, bad, who it was. And I heard through third party Andromedans much later. And I trust that person's listening ability, judgment, and so on. I bought as much time as I could. Could you describe ships, lights, and experience, but physically what you saw? And for me, it was little red orbs that obviously were bigger because they were up high, but they weren't way up high. They were not treetop level. They were in between, comfortably like where a Cessna would fly, but much more spry. So I did the best I could at this end. Could you choose one scenario and let us know what you saw?
Yeah, my first UFO. So my first UFO was in December of 1995 over Silver Lake while walking the dog with my boyfriend Eric.
That's right.
And it was daytime. And so we were walking the dog, and she saw a squirrel run up a palm tree. And at the top of the palm tree was a squirrel nest. And so they were all running around, and she was just going crazy. Like, that was the coolest thing she'd ever seen. And we were laughing and looking up there. And that's the only reason we looked up. And there was a UFO above the palm tree in the sky, like very high, very high. And like where planes fly. And it was stationary, and it was a black object, very hard to make out the shape. I want to say it was a triangle, but I can't be 100% positive. But it had like a blue shimmer around it. So it was like a blackness with like a little, what I would call a plasma, field around it of some kind. Um, and and it just was there. And we had the tree for reference. Like, if it had moved, we would have had the tree, like, you know, to make sense if it moved around. It didn't move. And so we finally looked at each other briefly because my boyfriend said, "You and your UFO books." And I was like, what if it is a UFO? And then we looked back, and it was gone. And we were on a hill, so we had the whole sky in our view. And we're like, where did it go? Where did it go? Where did it go? I mean, it was right. It's not there. It's not there. We're looking all over. And so I handed him the leash, and I said, "I'm going home to report it right now." And he laughed. And so I went home, and they had a number in the phone book for a UFO hotline, and it was MUFON. And I called, and then they told me, "Hey, we have these MUFON meetings every month. Do you want to come?" And I'm like, "Oh, yes." So that started a whole other phase. And this was right at the time when I had the baby removed. It was the same month. I think it could have been the same day or the same week. I didn't really keep a diary back then, like I should have. But yeah, so that was my very first one.
And just a note for the audience, people can check out Earl Grey has been on the show, and he was going to come back on, but unfortunately he's passed over. We're very thankful for him sharing with us, but he was very involved with MUFON in California. and shared just some incredible details on his show. People can check that out. I think that was 2024, but go to the website. There's a master guest list under the Angels Positivity and Love show. There's album art. Click on it, takes you to the show. Okay, I'm going to share one more, hopefully super quick experience here. I'd love for you to take another turn describing something. Mine was around 2010, 2012. I'm a runner since I was 14, 44 years. I'm running in Canyon Creek, a little neighborhood in Northwest Austin. Beautiful, wide California style roads. It's Texas, though. And I'm coming over this rise on Boulder Lane, and I look up and I see what I thought was like a pulsar, quasar, whatever, the brightest light in the world, pinpoint of light. And then it faded and altered in brightness, black dot. And if it was actually something in our atmosphere, it would have been over Kerrville, like 100 miles away, 50 miles away. So I was listening to music, stopped, positioned it at the top of a tree, and did what any good red-blooded young American at the time would do. I grabbed two people walking their dachshund, I think tech types, and interrupted them and was like, "Hey, do you mind looking at this and tell me what we're looking at?" I punted. I did a great job punting. And they were very sophisticated, very good at analyzing. The husband and wife went back and forth, decided it was a UFO. It's a UFO. And I started running down the road. I'm looking at it, and I'm like, U-turn, go home, shut the windows. It was the day of the Dolphins Patriots football game, second one. So it was probably November, December, and I know the year. I wrote it down somewhere. But I was a little nervous after that. Called my aunt in Florida. Now, I bought as much time as I could. What was the other one? If you could describe specifically what you saw, was it a disc shape? Was it light, only light? Was it a large ship, small ship? And also your feelings when that happened.
Well, the best one I had was more recent. It was in February of 2023. And I was invited to speak in March at UFO Con in San Francisco. And it was my first public speaking engagement for many years because this was at the end of my phase when I went Catholic and I thought it was all demonic. And then I was coming out of that in like 2023. And someone had asked me to come, and I was like, okay, okay. So I was at church, and it was under a tent, and I was sitting in the back. It was daytime, and I was sitting actually behind the tent. There were a couple other little shades in the air above us, canvas things, and I was kind of between that part and the main tent, and I just said, and it was during the consecration of the Eucharist, and I'm sitting there, and I said, Jesus, I'm going to do this UFO thing and I don't want you to be mad at me and I really want to go and I'm so confused. I said, if you are working with any being, any good beings in the UFOs, can you please give me a sign? That's what I was praying while the priest was doing the consecration. And then I look up and because there's this little piece of sky between my shade area and that big tent. And these four white things come out of the clouds and start flying around. And I whip out my camera and I got like a few seconds of them on video. And it's on my YouTube channel if anybody wants to look. I call it Answer to My Prayer. And they're just flying around like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And they were beautiful. And I got the video and I showed the priest afterward and told him what happened. And he was like, wow. And so that was like, to me, the answer to my prayer. Because I think they were orbs or something. I showed it to Chris Bledsoe like a week or two later when I met him, and he said, "Camille, those were your angels." And I was like, "Oh, really?" and then I had MUFON look at it, and they thought it was birds, and I was really upset. But then I thought, I don't think it was birds. But I thought overall, even if there were birds, they were white birds, and the Holy Spirit is a white bird in symbology. You know, a dove, a white dove. So I thought, well, birds or orbs or angels or whatever they were super high up. I think it was an answer to my prayer. Like, yes, it's okay. I'm working with the good beings too. Go, do it.
Oh, beautiful sharing. Love that. We're going to start to wrap it up. We're going to have you in just a moment share a mantra, any sort of expression though that is a new one. You haven't been caught on tape before sharing it. So some sort of beautiful advice, if you don't mind repeating it 3 times. Before we do it, we're going to do our last little interactive anything, no photographs. I'll put my hand up in Texas if you'll put your hand up in California, but only love and above, not my bill paying side or worrying or thinking or anything like that. Just big hearts. See what you can feel for an energy. You can use all of you too. If you want to put both hands up, that's okay. Camille, is this okay? Are you feeling anything yet?
I feel happy.
Okay. All right. What's the reminder you want to leave us with? If you don't mind repeating it at least once, but hopefully two or three times so people can get a feel for your energy.
This is my mantra. Jesus, bring me closer to the truth and put me to use for you.
And once is enough. Camille, thank you very much for being a guest on the show on Angels, Positivity, and Love. It was great having you on.
Thanks. It was fun. I'm glad. I will, and I love Earl Grey. He was a dear friend of mine. I almost started crying when you started talking about him. So, yeah, go and watch his video. His story's amazing.
And he shared a lot about his mom too, working for
Howard Hughes.
thank you. And including when he would knock off from work, they weren't allowed to leave the offices or look at him walking down the hallway. And the stuff that she then shared with him that she wasn't supposed to, and what he saw. I believe on the show, he was able to look out the window during taping and actually see lights in the sky during our taping. And that happens with, I'd say, only one out of like 40 guests. But we're not always talking UFOs and aliens. We're more angels, daily life, stuff like that. It just depends. Camille, you've been fantastic, a rock star. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. I'm so glad I was on, Michael. Best to you. All right. Bye bye.